Dobrý večer všem příznivcům architektury. Zdravím vás na poslední přednášce kruhu na konci léta. Děkujeme, že jste si našli čas na cyklus o přednášce, která je v rámci cyklu Severská architektura, a spolek Kruh vám tento cyklus přináší již 20 let. Věnujeme se nejen přednáškám, ale Kruh stojí i za celorepublikovým festivalem procházek pro veřejnost, Den architektury, a organizuje i filmový festival Film a architektura. Na tyto akce se můžete těšit na konci září a v říjnu. Na podzim se snad již i podaří zrealizovat další přednášky z letošního cyklu Severská cesta. Dnes se představí norské studio Opaform, které sídlí v Bergenu a věnuje se možnostem experimentování se stavebními postupy a materiály. Přednáška se bude věnovat experimentům jako jedné ze stavebních technik, učení se činností, stavěním. Podstatnou část studia Opaform totiž je práce se studenty, kdy společně realizují drobné stavby. Věnují se také navrhování a realizaci ubytovacích modulů pro jednoho člověka, a to v různém kontextu. Na dnešní přednášce se dozvíme, jak se Opaform snaží o realizace, které rezonují s minulostí i budoucností. Na realizaci této přednášky se podílí nejen celý tým Kruhu, kterým tímto děkuji, ale i prostor Kemp a naši partneři. Dnešní přednášku také podpořili fondy EHP a Norska. Všem patří náš dík, stejně jako vám všem, kdo jste dnešní večer podpořili nebo podpoříte nákupem virtuální vstupenky na GoOutu. Všechny aktuality o naší činnosti můžete sledovat i na našem Facebooku či Instagramu. Nyní si pustíme krátká videa našeho generálního partnera a hlavních partnerů. Nyní je mi ctí vám představit norský ateliér Opaform. Předávám slovo jednomu ze zakladatelů studia, architektu Espenu Felgure, kterého zde vítám a jemuž předávám slovo. Hello, Espen. It's now your turn. So we are very happy that you agreed with the lecture, and we are looking forward to hear it.
Yes. No, thank you very much for the invitation. So I tried to make the best out of it. I put together a selection of our projects that both shows kind of our approach towards architecture and also gives you a nice impression of some of the parts of Norway where we live. So as mentioned, I'm Espen Polger. Together with Marina Bauer, we run the studio of Opaform here in Bergen, Norway. We work a lot with like small infill projects in both a landscape context, but also in an urban context. I will take you through some of these projects, both from kind of the how we got involved in them. Some of them we kind of initiated ourselves, how we developed them in terms of the process, both as kind of the architectural process, but also the kind of design build aspect of it. Because most of these projects that I will show, at least the smaller ones, we have either built part of, or we have led student groups who built them, or we have completely built them ourselves. So the first one I would like to kind of go a little bit in depth about is the project that we call the Barn project. So we were working with this municipality here in the west coast of Norway, traveling by train quite some time, going back and forth between Bergen and this local smaller city. Now, what you cannot kind of fail to see or notice is a lot of these barns, like these buildings that used to be part of the agricultural, but that they are both abandoned and they are not kept at all. And we started kind of to look into these mechanisms of why they are not kept, why they are just falling down, and found out that it's they are obviously like in terms of where they are situated and also in terms of their size, they kind of lost their relevance to a modern agricultural production. To the owner, they kind of represent little or no value because they cannot tear them down. There is like a historic protection that won't allow the farmer to tear them down. So they very often it's like this strategy of just waiting for the roof to collapse, and then the building starts to deteriorate, and then you can hope to build something new. Now the other strategy is to kind of completely rebuild these structures into kind of like party locations, or kind of like these places where you invite people, but then you insulate everything, and you kind of destroy the quality of the kind of atmosphere and this the reason why they are protected in the first place. So we wanted to kind of develop this strategy of how can we intervene in these very nice buildings without kind of tearing them down, and without kind of building away all of these qualities that we everybody kind of appreciates. So what we did was to make, in this first initial kind of pilot phase, we made these 4 different approaches towards this kind of building that would kind of apply to a lot of these similar situations. I will show you like 3 of them very briefly, and then explain more one of them. So in these projects, we worked with a lot of kind of travel agencies and people that were experts within the field of travel and destination development. So we kind of pinpointed different groups of travelers that would be interested in kind of coming to the west coast of Norway and maybe spending some nights in one of these barns. So these are the first ones are visualizations of possible outcomes of these. We call this the anthill. So we would kind of add these pods that would very kind of softly go through the facade, and they would be like these sleeping capsules, and they would be aimed towards kind of like larger groups of, for instance, kayakers or mountain bikers. And in this, we would keep everything else as is. We would just like allow ourselves some small openings in the facade, whereas the other ones, we would completely kind of, we wouldn't touch the facade at all. So this is like a den. It's felted wool that is stacked on top of each other. And then you kind of, you carve out this cave where you can sleep one family. And in most of these cases, it's kind of like the level of climatization or the level of controlling the climate is kind of limited. It's more like we stop the wind, we give this shelter, and then we also kind of control the reflection of cold air. So this is wool, so it's a very kind of warm, and it also provides the space with this tangible warmth, even if it's kind of the temperature doesn't rise. And some of them you could even heat with your own body temperature because of the very confined size of them. All of them are developed so that we use this wool in some sense, and we use wool because it's a very underutilized local material, and wood because it's also underutilized, and especially kind of this the pioneer trees, as we call them. So we have the kind of the graceland, and then we have the forest on each side of this fence. And the graceland, you have kind of the forest is moving in towards the graceland, wanting to kind of take over. So the cultivated landscape, it kind of needs continuous actions in order to keep it as this cultivated landscape. And the cultivated landscape is what we know and what we usually kind of associate with this kind of West Coast landscape. So we wanted to see how we could use these as particular types of wood. So we have this, a lot of aspen is a pioneer tree. It becomes kind of ready to be cut down after a very short time, like between 5 and 10 years. And it's also a very light, nice material to touch, and it has these abilities to bend, especially when we cut it fresh. So we went to some of these actual locations, cut down some of these aspen trees in the beginning of the springtime, and we started to kind of develop shapes in our workshop. So in addition to our architectural studio, we also have a quite big workshop area where we develop both prototypes and we work with details, and we also make kind of finished products. So in this and in this project, the workshop and kind of working with the wood like this, it became like the tool for kind of drawing. So we take this actual material and we make these small butterfly joints, and by kind of describing and scripting where they are, we could kind of force the material into these particular shapes. So in this project, we made this. This is like it's a bed, but it has these sculptural abilities. So on the right-hand side, it's like this flat part that's elevated, and it's kind of cantilevering based on this shape on the left side. And on top, in this case, we use this felted Nuno wool. So it's like this it's a silk, very thin silk material. And then we use wool on each side, and then they are then softly blended together. And in this case, they create like this veil on top of this bed. And this was something, again, this visualization. And this was something that was very like identified very early by these destination developers, that to have like this kind of honeymoon suite would be something that had kind of great appeal in an international kind of travel market. So what we did now is, so this is still like visualizations, and this is kind of the end of this pilot project. And then a local hotel, they came and kind of bought the idea. You can see now in this image that kind of the project, the way it was developed there, was kind of this very sculpturesque. It was it demanded a lot of space around it to kind of become this piece in like a centerpiece in a room. The barn that we eventually got was far from the same size. You could almost not stand upright. As in most, so we obviously we needed to rethink the strategy of this particular one, but we sought to kind of combine aspects of these different typologies that we had developed in the initial phase. Like most of these places, there are the entire building is very crooked. Everything is nothing is plumb or leveled. So in this case, we needed to, because we wanted to kind of expand and use as much space as possible, we needed to measure everything and then translate all of these measurements to our workshop, where this is kind of like where we started to make this shell. This is these are the roof rafters, and these are the beams on top of the walls. So every kind of every imperfection and everything that's slanting, we measured and put into this workshop, and then we started to make everything as modules. So we made it kind of as a ready piece, flat packed, and then we brought it by a tractor in this case. And this is kind of also showing the intention of the project is to kind of allow these people to, or to give them a reason to keep their buildings intact. So this is the actual owner on the right side. He owns this this barn. He sold his land or part of his farm to a ski resort. So he has more money than he can ever spend. And he has also a lot of these barns. But he has kind of no reason to keep them. But the moment the hotel wanted to rent his barn and to put this module into it, he started to change the cladding, and he started to change the roof, because then it's kind of like there is some use of it. So as I said, the new project needed to kind of fill this void in a much more precise way. So even the small gutter in the center, we utilized in order to gain height in this module. So this was usually on each side of this, there was a cow initially, and then they would shit into this gutter in the middle. So that's why it's deeper, so you could just shove it out. And we made this to kind of fit into that one, and then we had this entrance like a moon door. And in the ceiling, you can see there is this light tunnel. So it's like this very reflective pipe that goes through the ceiling with a prism on top and brings light into this very small pod. And here we can see how we also incorporated part of this kind of the anthill aspect of just slightly going through, very carefully kind of relating to the situation to bring in this very particular view that we have. And here we can see the barn in the landscape. In the winter time, it can be as much as 4 meters snow. So we added this extra door that you can see on the top. So you don't have to dig everything out when the snow really becomes big. There we can see how the module relates. So to us, it was extremely important to keep a big part of the existing space as an actual space, so that it would be kind of this experience of going into this original. Here we can also see these slate stones. This is where the hay used to lay. So the cows would then face this hay and graze. And here we can see kind of like these slight nuances, or it's a very much lighter and it's much more refined, the one that we add, but it's the same material and it comes from the same forest as the existing one. It's just like slightly, it's not so crude or coarse in the detailing and in the materiality. And here is the threshold between what we added and what was already there. So this is like, it's not sitting, or it's not like you cannot stand in this space. That's also why we wanted to make this entrance, like this moon door, something other than a regular door in a way. So you would have to respond, going through the opening, you would have to respond with your body. So you would have to kind of come down, and then you're kind of asked by the architecture to take a seating position and to kind of be on your knees on these tatami mats. This is Marina sitting in this module. So we also add this very small heat source where you can cook a pot of tea, and that's like, it's just lit with some kind of special candles, I would say. So and then if you close the door, even if it's 20 minus outside, because of the confined space, it doesn't become less than 10 degrees, even in wintertime. And here you can then sleep either on couple on one side, or you can have a couple with some children. And then we have these integrated shelves. And there we can see also the window cantilevering out that also serves as this table. So you sit with your feet down in this pit, and you have this table. And this now, it functions like this, like the part of like this very established high mountain resort that kind of offers a variety of rooms and like conferences, and it's a skiing hill just next to this one. And so they invite people to, for instance, have the entire wedding in the hotel, and then they are the couple, the bride and groom, they are then transported to this space as the kind of honeymoon suite, or you can have it as a regular room, and then you can have either kind of like just borrow the key, or you get like this white tablecloth breakfast serving, every kind of conventional hotel experience. So this is the view that, as I mentioned, also kind of serves as this table. And here we see on the right side is the skiing hill. So it looks like this very remote, but it's also kind of very representative to what a kind of underutilized resource that we have here on the Norwegian west coast, where we have all of these kind of small abandoned buildings. They are protected from kind of, you cannot make them into a conventional cabin because of the law. And at the same time, they have maybe one of the more, compared to kind of regular cabins, they are much more spectacular in their connection to how they are situated in the landscape and what they then can offer to visitors. So we did this one, I suppose it's like 3 or 4 years ago. And then as this was kind of marketed by the hotel, a local, what's it called, fashion brand, I suppose. They wanted to do their photo shoot for a new collection. So this is like some wool clothing that's made also here in the Norwegian west coast. And as they kind of appreciated the space and what we did to it, they wanted us to do their flagship store that they were going to open in Oslo. So I will also just briefly go through how we kind of approach this, which is a very kind of unusual task for us. We do not kind of specialize in retail space at all, but I think that was maybe an advantage, because what they asked us to do in a way was very much to deal with kind of materiality and detailing, because that we work with a lot. But we also wanted then to, when we got this task, to kind of ask the question of what is kind of shopping, what's kind of our attitude and our approach towards shopping. And I think it's very interesting to kind of see the development of, first you had like this very lively city centers, and then you kind of you lost that activity to the shopping malls. So you are kind of draining this part of the historic city centers. At the same time, we now see that the internet shopping is kind of draining the shopping malls again. And then we still kind of need these physical manifestations of the stores, and the stores as a physical kind of arena becomes more like this social space. That's a kind of our attitude towards this task, that it's like we have to create an architecture that kind of embraces the fact that you don't just go to the store in order to kind of touch the materials or to kind of see the goods. You also go there to kind of share an experience with some of your friends. And because this is kind of a clothing store, sorry, we will now, I will just show you some of these kind of details. So as you can see in this first image as well, we have this soft wall that sort of takes you into the shop, like visually from the outside. That's made out of these pieces of felted wool that we got from the manufacturer that they use to make their clothing from. So we have this very soft wall, and it creates kind of this very open kind of atmosphere around the counter. So the counter is not like something that you would approach and then stand on the opposite side of. It's kind of a round table where you meet these people that guide you, that work there, and we have more of a kind of like a conversation where you are equals. So this is the first piece, and then it's as many of these spaces, it's consist of two spaces. One kind of very exclusive street level floor, and then there's a basement that's much cheaper to rent and often is then bigger. So you need to kind of have a separation of a program between these two spaces. So we wanted the top one to be like this, to manifest this kind of social arena. So I don't know if this is too light for some of your screens, but you go in and then you have this fluid wall, and then it's kind of created this mezzanine where you have the staircase taking you down to the basement. And then there is also like this very slim space next to it. The way we use that is that this is kind of the fitting room behind this glass. So you would then, this picture is then taken from the mezzanine, and then you would enter the fitting room from the left side, and then you would kind of you would put on your new clothes, and then you would flip a switch, and then it's this smart glass. So there's nobody in it right now, but you would then kind of present yourself with and manifests this kind of, it stages this meeting. You go there with your friends, you try on something new, and then you kind of show yourself to whoever you are a part of, and get some feedback. And we wanted to kind of manifest that, and in addition, we wanted the bottom or the basement to be like this flexible space, as this is also a part of kind of having a retail shop or a retail space. Now it has to be kind of like this showroom. It's where in their case they have like this one shop in Oslo, and then they have one shop in the US that we also designed last year. But apart from that, most of the shopping is done online. So they have to kind of bring everybody together, everybody that wants to kind of experience their brand. And they wanted to then be able to do kind of like these ceremonies or like fashion shows, I suppose, like these catwalks. So we also designed the basement with this very kind of flexible ceiling and very open space on the floor, where we made this kind of pathway that's always part of the floor. And then we wanted to kind of to take away this cellar kind of feeling, this subfloor feeling. We introduced this very light ceiling. It consists of this fabric, and then behind that there's a lot of LED lights in these strips, and they are made so that the light cone overlaps. So you would have like this completely perfect lighting ceiling, and from hanging down from those are these hooks where you can hang this flexible hanging system, and also as you may notice, it's the sprinklers. They are painted in the same color and goes into the grid and the rhythm. So it's kind of nice to work with these kind of high budget retail spaces in order to kind of also experiment on the detailing and kind of very much devote ourselves to kind of these detail fetishism in a way, and then maybe bring it out into more kind of real world application as well. You can see kind of the plan with this catwalk that's embedded into the floor, this flexible hanging system, and there's a detail from the oak floor. It's kind of like this earth, like rammed earth floor, where this is just rammed into it's like flush. And a very kind of important part of it is this like a kitchen cabinet that normally just sits in the back, but it also can kind of completely transform this space into more of a kind of a lounge area, where you bring out some furniture, and then you have kind of more of a intimate atmosphere together with some clients. So as I said, this is kind of like something that we do less of. What we do more of is some kind of these small projects in our own region. So a lot of these, they are kind of like developed back and forth between the location. This is something that we did. This is a project that we did 5 years ago together with students. So we initiated it, the project. We asked kind of the municipality if we could, if we raised money, if we could kind of make a guest room for the city of Bergen. So we had some issues kind of landing the deal, but in the end we kind of said that, okay, if people don't like it, then we will pay to kind of remove it. So we got some funding from kind of these people that wanted to kind of give this gift together with us. And in the budget, we also had like this, we put away some money that could, the government or the local municipality, they could just decide we don't want it anymore, and then we would have to take it away. So then we got accepted. And then we started to go back and forth between the drawing board and the site, started to make some of the actual foundations before we kind of finalized the design, made a lot of experiments on in the workshop. And in the end, we landed on this because we wanted the client to be like the children of, especially maybe the children of Bergen. So a lot of people don't have kind of access to the outdoors. It demands a lot of resources. So even if it's kind of seemingly free, we wanted to create this space that would be accessible to everybody. And as we wanted it to kind of have this appeal to the children, we wanted to make this like fairy tale like entrance into it. So we wanted to bend wood and invite the children to kind of play and come inside it. This was done, we kind of experimented on school, and then we brought it up, started to build, but the woods had a different moisture, and we had different quality of wood when we came up. So everything started to kind of crack. So these are just some kind of stories from the building and from the how we made it. So in the end, we had to make kind of like this hot tub for all of the boards, and we had this old heater that we dismantled, and then we took the heating elements, made it into a much more like sturdy where we could heat the water. So every piece of wood is first kind of boiled, and then we took it boiled, and while it was still kind of like boiled spaghetti, we put it into these layers on top of this entrance. And you can see the freshly mounted entrance into this cabin. And as I said, one of the things we wanted to achieve was to have like this appeal to the younger kind of clientele. And we wanted also to be kind of like this attraction, like this place you would visit, even if it's closed. Because the way it functions is that you borrow the key from the municipalities. You have to kind of go. It's completely free of charge. So it's been very popular. But we wanted still to be kind of an attraction, even if you didn't have the key. So you can kind of see how the children run around and play and enjoy this area. And also we kind of, in order to take nothing more than we give, we also lifted it up, and then we had this lunch place where you don't have where you have shade from the rain. This is an interior, very simple, with this curves where you have this mezzanine where you can sleep, and then you have a fireplace, and this is the city of Bergen. So we have this funicular, like this train with a cable car that takes you up to about like 400 meters above sea level. So this is like extremely close to a highly dense urban area, and it has now been rented out for the last 5 years, and it's been fully booked ever since. and we got some publicity for this. We were nominated for this Mies van der Rohe award, and then because of this attention, we were invited by a school in Bratislava in Slovakia to do a project together with them in the Donau River. So they wanted us to kind of bring some experience from these design and build processes, and to kind of lead this two groups of students in making a addition that was going to be focused on bird watching in this case. Sorry. So I don't know if I should mention too much of the design process, but we leading kind of these larger groups. This is kind of one of the few which is kind of like done in a larger student group. We need to kind of go through these evolutionary steps in order to find the shape and find what it's supposed to be. So we kind of agreed on this very soft kind of wooden carpet that would be situated just between the river and the riverbank. We went into further kind of investigations into how this could manifest, working with wood a lot also in the actual project development in the model phase. And then we needed to make some kind of system or some kind of shape that we could, because the building time was very limited. So we needed to kind of prepare everything. In this case, we did everything, or most of the kind of heavy construction or the kind of specialized part was done on a CNC cutter. So we could kind of, we could draw everything down to the last detail in a way in Norway, and they could cut it out while we were away, and then we kind of arrived for the last, for the cutting of the last pieces. And then we have these industrialized workshops where we could clamp everything and make these very precise shapes that made the building very easy. So you can also see kind of the vision coming to life with this wooden carpet. So it's like these, it's several layers of bent wood. And in this case, the wood is actually like, it's just regular panels. So it's like thin panels of maybe 12 millimeters. So the bending is just done without any treatment, because it's, the curve is so big. So we can have like these very smooth shapes without doing anything that is, and then it's kind of very natural to this format of the wood. The most important space maybe in this project is this covered kind of cave, because in this case the main client was these bird watchers. All they need is kind of like this dry surface and preferably protection from the rain, and then also kind of like this silhouette in the background so the bird don't get scared. And they want to be as low as possible. So they want to kind of lay here and look at these birds. And then we kind of insisted on bringing this to some kind of furniture that would also kind of have this appeal to everybody riding across on a bike, for instance. It's this very long kind of official bike road that stretches along this Donau River. It was also popular in this, the main kind of target group that made these bird watching seminars. So it's connected to this kind of professional bird watching agency that takes people around and then bring them up and show them this very nice area. And once again, the fashion industry wanted to use it. So this is a local fashion blogger that sent us an image afterwards, which was funny. Now you can see like from above how this kind of very smooth carpet of wood kind of goes between the river of Donau. And when you come, if you cross it or if you kind of approach it from the river, it blends into this into the vegetation and becomes this very smooth kind of just movement that goes above and hides then the bird watchers. So one more small project, this one again from Bergen. So this was one that we did after this, the Tuba Cuba, the one with the curved entrance. And that was kind of like this very exposed, spectacular location. In this case, we found this very secluded part of the forest, but the light can also be very nice as it's kind of reflected or kind of filtered through the forest. And we want to kind of always insist on experimenting on different techniques of wood. One technique that is or material that is traditionally used a lot is the bark of the birch, like the white part. And that's also a very sustainable material. You can do that like 6 or 7 times to a tree during the lifetime without doing any harm at all. So we wanted to kind of find out, can we use this material as kind of the final surface? Usually you put turf on it because it bends, it curves upwards. So we found this industrial press or industrial plywood press. And then we added several layers of this bark and then cross them so that it would kind of counter each other's need to bend, because you need kind of the upside to face the outside. And then it becomes like this completely waterproof, completely natural surface. It's only kind of the glue that is artificial. Apart from that, it's kind of like just like this sandwich of different types of wood. In this case, we had to make our own CNC cutter, as we didn't have that already. And we found out, because the design is kind of like this very kind of soft again, kind of gesture that kind of climatized this one space. And then inside that, we placed this sleeping box. And then we have like this, and you can see like in this rather dark kind of forest, it takes this light, the light that is there. And because of this very light white birch color to it, it kind of reflects it and gives it a very nice kind of glow to it. And this is also kind of an image that shows a lot of some of these aspects that I think is very important to how we approach architecture in this on this scale. And I think that it's like the architecture in every culture starts with this kind of gesture to climatize something. So either you kind of protect yourself from the rain, you want to completely control the climate as we do now, or if it starts with this kind of the need for shade even, or in our case, very often kind of protecting against a certain wind. And the less we do of this kind of fully climatized projects, the more we can kind of appreciate these different transitions between the outdoors, like the nature, and the fully climatized, like 22 degrees spaces. So in this one, for instance, it's like this this roof that also kind of gives this shelter movement. It has this opening that you go into, but you can also then sit just under a roof with a wall that protects you from the wind that comes from the mountains there. And then you have like this more fully climatized, like where you can close the door. But that's like relatively, it's a very small part of this project. So this one we did, I suppose, 3 years ago. And as you can see, we have this river, and we also have like we live in the rainiest city in the world, I think. So there was some construction with a dam that controlled this river. last year, and that dam broke. So this is what this project looks like right now. It's just this box floating, and the roof is just like scattered all around. So it's a pity, but we have made several more. This is another one of these smaller ones that's dealing with kind of like challenging this these notions or these aspects of climatization, and at the same time kind of provides this a connection to the situation and the outdoors that you couldn't achieve, I think, in other means. So this is done with it's in Sognefjorden. It's the biggest and longest fjord that we have here on the west coast, and you have like this small situations where you have like this park, and this is a continuation of that one. We wanted to make this kind of it's kind of a cabin where you can stay. You can stay a lot of people. Either during the daytime you can be a lot, and in the nighttime you can be fewer. Just curved into this wall, so the heavy wind is coming from the side. So there it's relatively closed, but it's opening itself towards the view where it's calmer. This is done with kind of weaving oak into these stainless steel rods that are holding the roof up. And these rods, they are just like drilled down into the hard rock and holding up the stainless steel roof. In order to do that, in order to do this weaving, we have to use this very old technique. Instead of, as I mentioned earlier, we kind of boiled this pine that we used for the entrance to the other one. This is oak. It's much harder, and we wanted to keep it in one layer. So this is like 11 millimeter oak. The way we made it possible to work with is that we rowed out into the fjord. The fjord becomes very deep, very fast. And then we tied a rock to them and a rope, and then we could lower them down to 400 meters, and they could just stay there for like half an hour. And then the combination of the pressure and the water would then go into it, and it would be completely transformed when it comes to the bending abilities. And at the same time, when it dries out, it becomes just as hard as it was. So we made these kind of stainless steel rods, put on the roof, and then we rowed out into the fjord, put planks down, and then we could just go back and weave them. And this is, as I said, it's an old technique for weaving baskets and like finer woodworking, where you would do exactly the same. You would take your boat, row out, submerge it, and then work with it. As I said, it's a very kind of small space that enables people to come together. You have the light coming in from this opening, and then we can have like a fireplace. So you get like just kind of very, very finely tuned in terms of climatization. You get just what you need towards that wind that could kind of disturb it. You would also be dry from the rain, but the rain comes in through the opening still. And then you also have like this contact with the outside. And that's kind of like one of the more important aspects as well. It's like we could say that as the first kind of action of architecture is to protect or to kind of to shelter from some kind of weather phenomenon. By doing that, you kind of create like this outside inside. You create like this separation, but what you also give yourself is the kind of the ability to open up and to invite in part of the view or kind of the situation, the way you interpret it. And then this one also kind of the meeting with the ground, I think is something that we work with a lot and became quite successful. This very soft kind of way of interacting and understanding the landscape, even if it's extremely kind of geometrical shapes in plan. It's like this S shape, perfect Euclidean geometry, but it touches down, meets the ground, and gives this kind of very soft invitation. You see this opening, you come in and you go around and you go into this social space. And now I think this is the final one of the smaller projects. And then I will just do one kind of urban lastly. So this is the other one that we did that I just showed is down here by the fjord. So this is on 1,000 meters above sea level. This is still the Sognefjorden. So there is this race, like uphill race going from Sognefjorden, from the quay down here, so 0 meters above sea level, and then you run up to this, which is 1,000 meters. So the local municipality wanted to kind of have this both a cabin where you could spend the night if there was a need for it, but also kind of like this where you cross the finish line place that they can have during this race. This one is like the closest road, I suppose, is also down here. So it's completely cut off, like infrastructurally, from the rest of the world. So you would have to, in this case, we have transported everything with a helicopter. So we did everything like a kind of ready-made in the workshop. So we made more or less the complete building, put in insulation into everything, made it tight, and then made it so that kind of every piece is manageable for 2 persons. So you can see here that it's like self-supporting. This is one piece. This is before the insulation is put in. And then the entire mounting process is then planned, and thing is kind of flat packed in a reverse order. Because at this altitude, we wanted to spend, we wanted it obviously to be as efficient as possible. And once again, it's kind of like this, this notion of kind of having the architecture being very immediate when it comes to this climatization aspect of it. Like you can see that the architecture is like a gesture to control the climate. It's a gesture to protect whoever is visiting the architecture from whatever climate is kind of rough here. So in this case, we have like these 2 very heavy winds. We have the southwest and northeast that kind of appears on different times. So we always wanted to have like this sheltered entrance area. And so we made like this in a plan. It's like this shifted parallel. They are not parallel. They are kind of a V shape, but then they are kind of like shifted a little bit in relation to each other. So we get like this one sheltered entrance here that has this view, and then we get another sheltered area here that has another view going out. So they also kind of articulate how they are opening. This one is more opening itself up. This is more like directed towards more of a kind of specific part of the view. And this is, it's completely like covered in snow when the winter comes. This is like very early fall. And when the winter comes, it's completely submerged in the snow. So we wanted also to kind of have this very robust. These are like these, if you have seen like the Arctic explorer Roald Amundsen, Fridtjof Nansen, that took these pictures of their ship in the ice that's completely like dug in. That was kind of like a motif that we wanted to create. We also wanted to kind of work with this kind of motif in the interior space. So you kind of get like this very sheltered feeling, even if this is more of a completely climatized space. But we wanted to work with this atmosphere of kind of being inside maybe this ship's hull, where you kind of you feel the environment and you feel in a way what's at stake. And then this is from from the entrance. And there you can see down to the fjords. It's very hazy day. And then we have two different entrances. One on this side that's kind of has this kind of counter. It's where you kind of sit in the opening, and then the other one is more of a conventional kind of door that you just go through. And now I will just show the last one, which is more of like a conventional, it's something from the historic center of Bergen. And in this historic center of Bergen, we rarely see kind of new things. And when we see new things, it's not necessarily very successful, I suppose. So this is like a extremely big yacht designed by Philip Stark for Abramovich. That kind of, it's like this private structure that kind of goes in and it completely destroys this. This is like the UNESCO, the harbor front in Bergen. And this is kind of, it also shows kind of how fragile this kind of situations are. Like if you come with even a boat that has like this contrasting aspects to it, it completely destroys and kind of takes away a lot of the quality we feel. And sadly, that's kind of like what's being done also, as you maybe know from your own kind of historic center. That when you add, it's a very like difficult process. So the only ones that are going to do it or successfully doing it are the ones that have enough money to kind of change a completely or buy out and completely change an entire block of the city. So this is also done in Bergen, and something that I don't appreciate very much, where you kind of, again, you have like this mediocre new architecture that kind of, in its scale, completely destroys this the quality of the existing one. And even worse is when you do it in the front, like by the waterfront. So this is an image, but it's actually being built, or it has been built right now. The project I'm going to talk about is just behind this one. So it's in the street behind these very big buildings. We were asked to do like this rebuilding of a smaller piece of this historic city center. So these are wooden buildings all over. It's a very big cluster of these wooden buildings. And this owner, he bought like these 4 in a way buildings. 2 of them were completely like run down and needed to be changed, whereas 2 of them had like high historic value. So we needed to take care of them. Now, already there was these other architects that had done this sketch proposal, but they had gotten negative feedback from the planning municipality. So they were not allowed to make it. They made something like this. And so when we were kind of handed the project, it came with this kind of notion that they could do it, but then they had to take away 1 story. And then the owner said that we had to redo it, and we had to make sure that we could introduce this 3rd floor, because if not, there would not be like financially possible. So we had to go into this dialogue with the space, with the surroundings, and also our local building, like the protectors of the historic environment, which are very competent, luckily, in our city. They have a lot of knowledge and a lot of understanding, and are very kind of open to discussions. This is also extremely important area in Norway, as a lot of social anthropological papers have been written about kind of the social life that exists between these houses. So this is just next door to the plot that we were working with. So you have kind of like this very special, the size of the space is very particular, and the meaning of the thresholds and the separation between private, public, and common space is something that is very kind of carefully thought out. And how you read the space, it's very obvious that you read these very narrow openings still as kind of public space, and then you also understand when you have common space and when there is a threshold to something that's more private. So working with this situation, we needed to kind of find an architectural language that would both kind of deal with this notion of the public space, and that would also kind of relate to the surrounding area. So in this, it's a more of a conventional kind of architectural model making dialogue, where I think like the kind of conversation you have around these kind of attempts is kind of the DNA of an office, and what you kind of use to score these attempts. So in our case, in this one, we used them to kind of find out both how we could kind of create good quality of space for the project, but also how we could kind of have a shape that would relate in materiality and in maybe also scale, particularly to the neighboring buildings. So one of the first things we did is to kind of break it down so that our surfaces would all of them would kind of relate to the surfaces around them. So none of them will be like bigger individually than any other kind of facade or any other shifted piece of building that we see around us. We also did this action of separating the two volumes into two. They are connected through this this piece in the middle, but they are also very, very much like visually two different buildings. This also relates to this facade in the backside, where you have like in the existing one, you also have these two broken buildings. We took it a little bit out from the existing buildings to not destroy the detailing around the rafter, which is extremely important in this historic buildings. Just an overview of the plan. It's a gallery space. It's this craftsman who works with thin sheet metal, making these lanterns, and these are like office spaces in the first floor, and then you have like this very important courtyard that's also open to the outside. So it's this architectural language of kind of separating between this as a common area, and then you have the threshold, which is like less inviting, and then as we will see in the other pictures, we have like a public access to this side, where the architecture also kind of steps back and invites in. So more of a conventional second and a very generous third floor. So we can see in the situation from the building, this was obviously extremely challenging as to build, as the site is extremely narrow, and the building site, like to put the trucks and the material is very challenging. It's also made completely out of wood, which is like in terms of fire hazard and all of the technical demands, very challenging, but in terms of the quality of architecture, extremely rewarding. So this is from the finished one, where we can see you have this, it's taken a little bit back from the existing one. So we completely redid this one, like rehabilitated this one. And then we had this separation on the side, but we also pushed it back a little bit in order for the, and that's like finely tuning. That's extremely important when we work with it. Like imagine taking it like half a meter to the front. It would be much more kind of present and dominating in relation to this existing ones. And then we have this slightly cut off corner that also gives this invitation into the public alley that is beside it. And that's also done in a way to provide this space with this human scale. So you kind of get this notion of this shelter even in the public space. As I said, it's an extremely rainy city, but and because maybe also when it rains, there's a lot of wind. So the roofs, they are hardly ever sticking out because it makes no sense. You cannot protect the facade from the water by kind of having this cantilevering roof line. So there are no roofs in the public space. So to have like these a little bit sheltered areas, but most importantly, areas that kind of take you into the alley and kind of invites you to take part of this extremely nice urban fabric that lies behind it. And now it's my last slide. These pictures were taken, the ones I showed, they were taken before it was completely kind of gray. This is untreated pine wood that we use, and we use that a lot. It's locally grown, and if it's correctly detailed, it lasts without any maintenance for 100 years. And it gets like this very gray patina, which is much more kind of finely tuned in relation to the surroundings colors than this glowing wood that we have right now. Okay.
That's it.
Perfect.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for your lecture. Thanks for your time you prepared, your beautiful work. Now I will skip for a minute to the Czech language and I will be back to you. Děkujeme za přednášku a nyní se pustíme do krátké diskuze. Zveme vás na Facebooku, abyste napsali své dotazy, klidně i v češtině, my je rádi přeložíme. A než vznesu první otázku, zvu vás na náš podzimní cyklus, kdy se od října pokračuje v přednáškách cyklu Severská architektura, ale i festival Den architektury, který je zdarma pro veřejnost po celé republice, nebo festival Film a architektura. Rezervujte si na architekturu celý říjnový první týden a budeme se na vás těšit. So, Aspen, can I have my first question? Could you share with us your ideas you should prepare for Venice Biennale, which is now cancelled? It will be next year, but can you open the doors a little bit?
They are very strict in
okay.
kind of, but yeah, they have invited us because of these projects that we deal with, kind of redoing these like existing space. So the question of the overall theme of the Biennale is this: how will we live together? How will we live together? And alongside, it's a very exciting program, I think, and we are very honored to be part of this main exhibition. And they have curated it so that they have mixed people from a much wider part of, like, geographically than usually. It's not like this very Eurocentric. So they have a lot of Africa and like South American projects. So it's kind of this vernacular, particular Western Norwegian context, and then we are asked to do some kind of, we kind of reinterpret our own work. But I don't know. We are told we can never show any kind of images or anything from it.
So maybe there will be one module for one man. You could try.
That is possible.
And did you ever build for yourself any of these modules? For example, do you have any property where to build it?
Like our own cabin or something. Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, we haven't done that. We made our own house. That's not ready to be published yet. But no, we worked with these. We are doing right now. We are doing two more that are like at the moment. Like this morning, I spent on a building site, working with one of these guest houses for the municipality. So we have spent the night in all of these that we have made. So we consider them partly our own, I suppose.
And one more question from me. Could you a little bit describe your process of design and build? Do you use this process also as an improvisation, or is it everything is planned before?
Well, that I think that's like one of the most important questions, but it's extremely difficult to kind of also answer on a general note. But I think that's kind of like one that you kind of have to feel and you have to kind of experience. It's very difficult to kind of write some kind of recipe, but I suppose it has a lot to do with kind of experience, yeah. So that you kind of know what you can develop on the paper, what it makes sense to kind of willingly or kind of knowingly bring into the design process that you have as you build it. Because I think that's kind of like, and sometimes it's a little bit unexpected, like dealing with space, and especially like this small space. We try to kind of do these one-to-one sketchings a lot, but something kind of happens when you make a wall instead of just like a sketch of a wall, and you are together in the kind of right amount of people. And if you kind of have still the possibility to change that and work with the wall as you make it, it can be kind of, it can make a lot of sense, even if it's kind of, it doesn't make any sense at all to kind of, why don't you just draw it? Isn't this why we train ourselves as architects, to kind of anticipate the space? We make a line on a piece of paper, and then we are kind of the ones that are supposed to know exactly what is going to happen when that line is translated to some kind of building element. But I think that's kind of, there is a limitation to how much you can train. There is always some kind of, there is also always some aspect of kind of surprise as you enter a building that you have designed. You know it by heart, or you know it very well on the paper, and then you come and then you see kind of, and then there are these small things, and then obviously you cannot kind of redo the entire building, but you can have these smaller aspects. So we have even in other buildings kind of used these one walls or kind of openings that we knowingly kind of asked them to not make complete until we kind of do the final. So it's like this relation to the outside, and it's to do with kind of these. Obviously, the details we can do a lot, like rationally on site. But I think there's a lot that kind of translates to even bigger, because now you kind of, it is also with the way of how architecture is, how the field of architecture is kind of moving, where you have like these, you try to face everything into these completely kind of airtight compartments where you kind of do the bid drawings. And then you have like these, if it's kind of a professional builder, then it is used as a kind of legal document. And if somebody do something else, like the builder, they just like use it to kind of prove that they didn't do what they are paid to do. And this kind of separation, it's not healthy for the architecture, I think, at all.
Okay, thank you. We have one question probably from student. Is there any possibility for internship of students in your studio?
Yes, we have continuously, but yeah, we have a lot of applicants as well.
Also from Czech Republic?
I don't know. Maybe, probably, I think so. I haven't seen.
But maybe you also teach in university, so maybe there is also possibility to apply as a school student for exchange or something.
Yes, absolutely. We have, especially in master level, we have a good dialogue with a lot of universities. Mm-hmm. Here in Bergen School of Architecture.
So another question, why did you choose to work with the students so much?
I think that it started with kind of just obviously the school asking me, and I was very excited. But it kind of developed into this arena where we see that we grow a lot. We are asked like this fundamental kind of like stupid questions that you are normally not confronted with and that you normally kind of don't have to deal with. And I think that's kind of why we very often insist on dealing with architecture on a very kind of fundamental level, where we kind of question what is the basic intent or what is the basic kind of function of the architecture. Like I mentioned, when we do a retail space, we try to kind of ask the question of what is a retail space in society today, and what can it be, and how can architecture be a part of kind of elevating that. And the same goes for all of these kind of small shelters. It's a kind of arena where we can experiment and we can grow together with whoever we are collaborating with.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks for your lecture, thanks for your time. Děkujeme za pozornost všem divákům a těšíme se na další akce. Doufáme, že už naživo. Přijďte na přednášky kruhu. Děkujeme, nashledanou. So bye bye, thanks.